I'm like feeling a little nervous. And she's like, no, like we can do this. It's fine. So I think we're a good mix in that sense where we balance each other out. I'm
guessing occasionally you have to throw on the brakes and be like, no.
Yes.
This is like literally look at the numbers. This will not work.
Yeah.
Yes. When you're driven, the need to accomplish a goal is relentless. Hard work and ambition compel you to do whatever's necessary. In my work as a personal injury trial lawyer for 18 years, it's common to meet driven people. Those with drive can have different personalities, careers, or backgrounds, but they possess one common factor. Despite their passions, driven people want to surround and motivate themselves with other driven people. If you want to learn how to overcome obstacles by learning from others, then tune in here. This is the Driven Crowd Podcast.
Thank you for tuning into episode 83 of the Driven Crowd Podcast, fueled by Snellings Law. I'm your host, Scott Snellings. Today, we welcome Julia Geer and Ashton Murray, founders of Hosty Homes. Before launching the company in 2023, Julia and Ashton successfully managed their own short-term rental portfolio for over 3 years. They quickly learned that 5-star guest service and high occupancy are the cornerstones of profitability. Refining guest screening processes, optimizing listings with SEO strategies, and mastering dynamic pricing became their formula for staying fully booked, even in slow seasons. Today, Hosty manages short-term rentals across the DFW Metroplex and beyond for clients, investors, and homeowners with diverse needs. Julia and Ashton, welcome to the Driven Crowd Podcast.
Thanks for having us.
All right. Tell me briefly kind of your background and how you got to where you are. Ashton, we'll start with you.
Yeah, of course. So I guess back probably 2020, pandemic hits. I'm working a corporate job, very unhappy with kind of just where I'm at in life. And
that seems to be a recurring trend.
I mean, people say like growth comes from hitting a rock bottom place. And honestly, I feel like that's where I was at the time. I was like, I need to do something else with my life. I've always had a very entrepreneurial mindset. Both my parents were business owners and I've seen that my whole life growing up. So that was already instilled in me. But all in all, I had actually seen, funny enough, a TikTok video of a guy saying you could make all this money with Airbnb rental arbitrage. You know, definitely like TikTok pitch, selling you the dream. I thought to myself, if this guy can do this, I can absolutely do this as well. And so, I entered what was called Airbnb rental arbitrage at the time, which was essentially renting a property and then subletting it on Airbnb. Mm-hmm. This was a very profitable business model back in 2020 over a few years. It did start to die down a little bit, but this is funny enough. Julie and I have always been long-term high school friends. Yeah. We both went to different colleges and I wouldn't say lost touch, but we just went our ways and we reconnected at some point. I think she was having like a Super Bowl party at her house and invited me and she was like, I think it's so cool what you're doing in Airbnb. Like I'm interested in all these. And I was like, this is how it's going, girl. Like, let's do it together. So that was where our relationship formed. We actually found a rental arbitrage property who is where Hosty was born. The landlord actually was a guy from California. He was very interested in our business model. He was like, it's very cool what y'all are doing, that you're able to know the market well enough where you can list these properties on Airbnb and make them enough money where you're paying rent and still all operational expenses and profitable. So he basically proposed the idea saying, what if I were to buy a house? Would y'all be able to manage it? And we were like, absolutely. And then Hosty was born. So all in all, that's how I kind of got into it. Was funny enough, just seeing a TikTok and being inspired by, I guess, the financial freedom we all hear. And me and Julia connected later in life. And now we're the dream team, I would say. Couldn't do it without her. So yeah.
It's so interesting you say that because how many TikTok reels or Instagram reels, whatever. Sorry, not TikTok reels, TikToks or Instagram reels are out there of you can make millions of dollars doing this, that, or the other. And how many people have tried to do that and fallen on their face?
Yes. Yeah.
Because typically if you're listening to like Bigger Pockets podcast or podcasts like that, you only hear the success stories. Yeah. And for every one person who's doing it the right way and really, really well, like thousands of people get into it, screw it up. They don't understand the numbers. And so super impressive that from a TikTok, Hosty was born.
I think it was just sheer determination, a lot of it, because I was in that place of saying, honestly, I was not happy with my life and the trajectory I was on. I wanted to do something in terms of having my own business already. I also loved the idea of real estate investing because we all hear the financial freedom and generational wealth you can build with it, but I just didn't know what avenue that would lead to. So it is funny just saying that one TikTok was kind of what I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to figure it out one way or the other. And here we are a couple years later now.
Well, and I think that too, that I'm just going to figure it out mindset goes to one, you don't like where you are in life, right?
Exactly.
So that's a huge part of it. But two, you come from that entrepreneurial mindset from your parents doing it. You've seen it, like, hey, entrepreneurism. I love to make up words here, guys.
Me too.
Is really hard.
For sure.
You look at all the business owners online and this, that, and the other, and it's so great. You have all this freedom. Sometimes, but you also have a ton of stress, especially if you're scaling whatever business you're in.
Yes.
It's hard. And you realize very quickly as an entrepreneur, you're really not good at a whole lot of the stuff that you have to do.
Totally.
Right? So the sooner that you can grow and delegate and all those things, the better. So very interesting that you saw that perspective from your parents being entrepreneurs.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks.
All right, Julia, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, she covered quite a bit, but from my POV so to speak, when Ashton and I reconnected, my husband and I had just moved back to Texas from North Carolina, and I had a very young toddler at the time. I was kind of in that interesting phase of motherhood where it's almost like an identity loss, so to speak. You're still trying to figure out, who you are outside of being a mom, once the newborn trenches are over.
Right.
And at my Super Bowl party, I was like, I love what you're doing. Like, I'm so impressed by that. And as Ashton mentioned, we go way back. She's known my husband since he was like in middle school. She's in middle school, and we were really close friends in high school. And just naturally kind of rekindled from there. And I was like, I want to do what you're doing. And she's like, yeah, if you can find a property, like, let's do it together. And so I was, determined from that point to kind of start building something with her. And we found that property that she mentioned where Hosty was born. And like you mentioned too, a lot of the things that Hosty has done, we learn on the road because you don't know until you try. And I think that's a big roadblock for a lot of wannabe entrepreneurs is they're scared of, well, how do we get from point A to point B? And we kind of we're like, let's dive in and we'll figure it out as we go. And I think Ashton and I are very like-minded in that way, where it's just really worked out for us. And also being women in this space, young women, it's pretty unheard of. Most of the clients we have and people we work with are older men, to say it straight. And I think we bring a different cutting edge kind of approach to things, market disruptor, so to speak. But yeah.
And one thing I'll add too, which is funny, I didn't include originally, but Julia, so many people, even when I was doing the rental arbitrage back in 2020, 2021, so many people reached out to me and were like, it's so cool what you're doing, friends, acquaintances, people I haven't spoken to in years. And I was like, yeah, I'm happy to have lunch with you and like talk about it. This is something I'm passionate about. I probably talked to, 30 people over those years, had lunch with them, had a Zoom meeting with them, had a coffee with them, which at the time I was like, dang, I'm just giving people free knowledge here, time, everything, But Julia was the only person I actually told and followed through on what I told her. So I think that also really made me realize too, she's like a perfect business partner because again, she said she was wanting to do this and did it. So whereas a lot of other people, kind of similar to what you were saying, Scott, like a lot of people fail or realize, oh, I can't do this or, whatever. I don't want to say excuse, but whatever excuse, roadblock, whatever it is that happens. But Julia texted me like that next week and was like, hey, here's a property. Let's go look at it. And I was like, wow.
She's all over it.
Yes.
But I think that's really cool that you were willing to pour into people, give people your experience, because having someone who's doing it with the knowledge of it takes away a lot of the fear, right?
Yeah.
But if someone still, after talking with you, is kind of like, oh, I don't know. which the vast majority of people are, right? It doesn't matter what business you're in. If people are kicking the tires and trying to figure out, hey, can I go start my own thing?
Yeah.
Should I go start my own thing? The vast majority of people are going to come up with reasons why they shouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
And then they can just sit there and, think about it for the next few years. And that's kind of this shiny thing that, one of these days I'm going to do this, right? And so for the people that take the step to do it, there's no guarantee of success. And so it's crazy scary.
Mm-hmm.
And Julia, to what you said, you're always learning on the road.
Yeah.
If you wait until you have it all figured out to start a business, you're never going to start a business.
Exactly.
Never.
I always tell people, when we're talking about being an entrepreneur, right? I'm just going to rephrase. I quit making up words. Being an entrepreneur, your number one job is to problem solve.
Yeah.
1,000%. I tell her every day, I'm like, our job is literally putting out fires.
Yes.
That is what our job is solving problems. So
yeah.
Playing chess. Yeah.
You do. And the sooner that you can start surrounding yourself with people who are really good at solving different kinds of problems than you, the better. Mm-hmm. Because I think you realize very quickly as an entrepreneur, wow, I thought I was good at either finances or operations or marketing or whatever, but I'm not. Mm-hmm. Or if you are pretty good at each of those things, you don't have the time to really do well at each of those things.
Absolutely.
So what, other than obviously the kind of no fear, let's go do this attitude, what are some things that Ashton, you may be better at, or Julia, you may be better at, or do y'all just kind of divide everything evenly?
Yeah, that's a good question.
You want to take this one away first?
Yeah, I feel like why we are a good partnership is we align on a lot of the same values of just going and doing it. But sometimes I would say I'm more analytical at certain things. So I would say I'm more of the numbers girl. I do come from a finance background and she comes from a business background as well. Mm-hmm. And she's always just it's going to be fine. We'll figure it out. She's always there to reassure me. Cause sometimes I'm hold on. I kind of start walking towards that analysis paralysis where I'm feeling a little nervous. And she's no, we can do this. It's fine. So I think we're a good mix in that sense where we balance each other out. I'm
guessing occasionally you have to throw on the brakes and be no.
Yes.
Literally, look at the numbers. This will not work.
Yeah. Yes. And I do think working together for several years now too, our personalities have also kind of blended in that sense. Mm-hmm. So now I see that I'm more of okay, let's just go do it. And she's also pulling more analytical. So we kind of are this yin and yang duo. Yeah. But yeah, what do you think, Ashton?
Yeah, I fully agree. Especially when we started, Julia is very detail oriented, noticing if pennies are missing from something, or I would have never caught that, which is important to obviously have someone that is noticing and really zooming in on those little details. And I always felt originally I was more bigger picture, I don't want to even say creative, but just zoomed out. What is the bigger picture of whatever goal we're achieving? And Julia was very okay. I think of Julia as being able to look at a spreadsheet and find any issue within there. Me, I'm let's just send the spreadsheet out, So, but anyways, yes, now I feel we've even meshed together a lot. A lot of the times we do everything very 50-50, I would argue too. Of course, as we've grown so much, there are things we have to divide and conquer just naturally to get things done. But even when I'm texting her, I'm hey, did you have a chance to review these numbers? What do you think of them? She was oh yeah, those look good to me, and vice versa.
Yeah.
We're very on the same page now. I feel just over the past few years of working with each other, even we're very, what's the word? Symbiotic relationship. It works together very well. So, but yeah, all in all, your finance background, I studied marketing in school, together, different strengths for sure, but both, needed for the business. And I think we both hone in on those things very well.
And to follow up on that too, with her marketing background, she is so kind of similar to your firm, content focused, which I love. And I'm not as creative in that sense. She's always even walking up here to film this podcast, she's let's get content. And so she's recording us walking in. And I just love that, creative side to her, because again, we balance each other out so well, because you can't neglect one aspect of the business, you know, because it has to be well-rounded at the end of the day. And to be successful in this day and age, marketing, content, those are so pivotal to and integral to growing a successful business and being different in a saturated market.
Absolutely. I'm guessing you're the quick start. Is that right? Have you taken the personality? Have you taken the Colby?
Oh my gosh. I've taken a lot of them, like the Enneagrams. I've done all of them, but I don't remember. I don't know if I've done that one. I'd have to check, but
I am definitely the quick start at the firm. On the leadership team that we have at the firm, I'm quick start here. Alyssa, our head of operations, is like way down here. So we balance each other out quite a bit. She's the one trying to keep me from running off the cliff. And I'm the one saying, hey, hit the accelerator. Let's go. Come on. We're good. Let's do this. But I think that's huge, right? Surrounding yourself with people who have different abilities than yourself and balance you out, because we all are kind of on the edge of something, right? Whatever we're good at. Maybe you're on the edge of way too detailed, or hey, we need more information here, need more information here. As entrepreneurs, as y'all know, you're never going to have enough information. Never, right? You can have 90% of the information. Like, no, I need the last 10%. And so you just kind of get used to dealing with that over the years. Julia, what's the biggest surprise to you of being an entrepreneur? Something that you didn't expect?
The biggest surprise? That's a good question. Every day is just truly different. And, you know, that is so cliche, but it's true. You just never know what you're going to deal with, especially being an entrepreneur. I would say there are so many seasons of growing to your next point. And Ashton and I are also firstborn daughters, both of us. So very controlling in some aspects, where we went through a really interesting point of growth, I would say, over the last year or so, where we were holding so tightly onto the reins for everything. We were so involved in all the day-to-day operations, and we got to this point where we're doing all this work, but we're not scaling at the pace at the goals that we set for ourselves at the beginning of the year. And we kind of had to come to Jesus together. We're like, we just have to let somebody else do, you know, the work that is not at the level where we see ourselves, you know, taking Hosty and continuing to grow. And so we began to outsource quite a bit this year for things that can be automated or we can train someone to do. And I would say that's been an interesting point for us at Hosty now, because every day is truly different. We're now focused so much on growth and interior design and these things that do spark our creativity as well, where no 2 days are the same. And we're back to back all the time, which is great. It's a huge blessing, but it's been an interesting year for us, to say the least.
That's so exciting. You know, I always say growth problems are the best problems.
Yes.
You know, it's the other side of the problems that give you like the gray hair and the anxiety. You know, you can still have plenty of pressure on the growth problems, but much rather be looking at those than the other side of the pendulum. No 2 days are the same. I could not echo that more. I've been a personal injury lawyer for over 20 years now. And there's still stuff that comes up every single week where I have to scratch my head and go, that's something I don't think I've seen before. And then we reason through it as a team and come up with a strategy and go do it. And then same on the business side. There's always opportunities and you're just like, oh, is that the right opportunity? And how do you flesh it out? Because I'm sure you guys have people contacting you, sales on the marketing side especially, all the time and making these amazing promises. And it's like, okay, they have more knowledge about this system than I do. How do I determine which one is, you know, telling me the truth? Which one's shooting me straight?
Right. Yeah.
And so it's like that with everything, right? From your software to your marketing to your operations, all those things.
Yeah.
So Ashton.
Yes.
what's been your biggest surprise so far?
Lots of things for sure. Definitely agree with everything Julia said. I would say also, to echo what you're mentioning, Scott, is the Airbnb industry. Like, what we do is very niche. It's Airbnb property management, right? Which isn't like this everyday thing that people necessarily need. But there really is things that we come across and we're like, we've seen it all. You know, we have covered every single basis, whether it be investor relations, like our client relations, guest relations, house maintenance, you know, every single thing we feel like we've covered it. to realize we have not. It's something like absolutely left field that we deal with, whether it be a guest or like a random house maintenance issue that we're like, who do we even call for this? I've never heard of this ever in my life, you know? So those things I would say have been the biggest surprise to me. Also, another thing I would say that is different than what you've touched on is this can apply to every business, but seeing how tight-knit and really small world the real estate market is. It is absolutely shocking when we meet someone, they're like, oh, I know this guy. And it's like, oh, no way. I worked with him before prior on something else. Or, you know, everyone is very connected, especially in the DFW real estate market, whether it be fix and flips, Airbnb, interior design, like any kind of overhead business you do within real estate, everyone is very well connected. And it is just funny to realize like how much your reputation and that relationship building aspect matters, because every day we meet someone and they're like, oh yeah, we know them, or we find some funny connection, you know, just between people we work with or people we have worked with in the past. So that's something that definitely surprised me. And I think that does apply in a lot of other businesses as well. So yeah.
Even one of our clients, he over the summer was like, yeah, one of my friends is a personal injury attorney in Frisco and he has a podcast. And I was like, is his name Scott? And he was like, yes, Scott Snellings. And I was like, oh, he actually represented me when, you know, somebody wrecked into me. And it was just like, what a small world we live in where all these connections just take place.
Yeah.
But
it really is. And I think, you know, especially when you get into more than the niche stuff, right? Like you're not talking about just real estate agents. You're talking about even more niche than that in the Airbnb, which is relatively new.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I don't know when the first Airbnb started, but it's something that, you know, a lot of people have still never tried.
yeah.
And it's a really cool concept. So a lot of people aren't going to have any idea what you mean by arbitrage, and you kind of glance past it real quick by, you know, you rent it and then you lease a property and you turn around and you rent it. So tell us a little bit more about what that means.
Yes. So the foundation of rental arbitrage is exactly that, where you're renting a property or apartment and then again, leasing it on Airbnb as a short-term rental and advertising it as such. But really what it is you're having to obviously come to an agreement with the landlord, or in some cases apartment complex, that you have the legality and I guess opportunity to rent it on Airbnb, because there are, you know, some laws and even local laws and HOA laws, like you have to kind of work around to make that reasonable. But that's essentially what it is at the end of the day, is going to a landlord and saying, hey, and you know, instead of renting your property and me living in it, I still want to rent your property, but I would like to rent it on Airbnb beyond that. So it's kind of like you're almost the middleman between, you know, giving the landlord an opportunity where they're having their property rented out, quote unquote, like they're receiving their rent every month, but you're not necessarily their tenant at the same time. So,
Which I would imagine you have to use your argument mindset when you're going to people with this, right? Because if I own a property, I'm like, okay, yes, I do want to get paid rent, but I can run a background check on you, a credit check on you, all those things on you, and be perfectly satisfied that you're good. You're going to be a good tenant. I have no idea who you're going to rent it to. And while you're still on the hook to pay me, you're not. I mean, you're on the hook for all the damage and everything, but I don't know who you're bringing in. And quite frankly, you probably don't know who you're bringing in. And so that would be like a major, I guess, impediment for me if I'm the property owner. So how do you get around that? What do you tell them?
This is a very common objection, understandably so, for many property owners. There's a lot of benefits that I would say renting a property to someone that wants to do rental arbitrage is. There's a lot of benefits to that as a landlord. One of them being you're typically renting to a company versus an actual individual on the lease. So from a legality standpoint, that normally in Texas, at least from what I'm aware of, it's easier to break a lease with a company on the lease versus an actual individual, just in terms of eviction laws. Again, that's something we've never had an issue with, but that's just one of like the legal cells, I guess you could say. In addition to that, one thing that Julie and I really focused on when we were doing rental arbitrage, and again, trying to build this relationship and trust to have this business model running, is the fact that your property is typically taken better care of by in this case, Hosty property management versus some individual. Because if you think about it, on average, our properties have 10 stays a month. So that means the property is being deep cleaned 10 times a month. If you go to any individual and ask them, how much are you cleaning your house, deep cleaning your house
Your
on a
rented
monthly
house.
basis, I guarantee it's not 10 times a month, So from that perspective, cleanliness of the actual upkeep of the property is always being taken care of. In addition, one thing I would also say to landlords is this is our company's reputation. So we literally cannot afford to have your property not be in the best tip-top shape, whether it be landscaping, just overall appliance maintenance and management. Again, cleanliness, like all of these things represent us on Airbnb. It's very important on Airbnb to maintain 5-star reviews and great guest experiences to be profitable. Therefore, if we're not getting that, then we're not making any money. So a lot of the times it is in the landlord's best interest to rent to someone like us because we are taking even better care of your property than someone that might pass a background check or credit check or whatever it is and just be living in your house because of that reason alone. Like this is our business's reputation. This is the money we are using to feed our families literally. So it has to be presented in the best possible case.
Yes.
One more point I would touch on too is that, over the course of the year, we typically see about 80 to 90% occupancy rates through all of our houses versus if you are a regular tenant living in the house, that occupancy rate is 100%. So
Right.
Funny enough, I always present the argument like there's actually less foot traffic coming through your property with Airbnb versus someone living there every day, right? So typically, like just from a maintenance perspective, all of those things, like, yes, even we take care of little maintenance items, whether it be like under $200, $250. That's how we used to sell it. Like we'll take care of those little things. So again, we're calling you less than some random guy who's living in your house that's like, hey, my light bulb's out. Come and replace the light, just little funny things like that. So I always had very pleasant, great relationships when I was doing rental arbitrage. Even Julia and I, like the guy who, again, we started kind of Hosty property management with when we were doing rental arbitrage still, he absolutely loved us as tenants. He was trying to get us to renew the lease over and over and over. And same, every single property I've honestly rented, every landlord has been like, I want you to stay over someone else because again, we pay the rent on time. We keep the property in tip-top shape. All of these factors kind of play into why it's a great relationship, but
yeah, no, that makes total sense. So you mentioned that, one of the ways that you guys make money is occupancy, right? No brainer. How do you differentiate yourselves? Why would people pick Hosty properties? And where I'm going with this is from the marketing front. How are you providing that amazing client experience that people are like, yes, I'm only going with Hosty properties if I'm in these areas that they serve?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say credibility is everything. And I can't tell you how many times we have turned down, business because not all business is good business to us. We've really taken the approach and ethos of we don't make money unless our clients make money. And we take specific strategies in terms of SEO optimization, listing management, 5-star experience for our guests very seriously from the jump. And from there, I would say our growth has been very organic, word of mouth. We have tons of people every week reaching out to us saying, our friend so-and-so referred us to you because we really understand that 95% of our clients are real estate investors. So their bottom line and their property is our biggest interest. And, we've developed unique strategies to stay at high occupancy rates that kind of differentiate us from other property management companies in the market. But yeah, what would you say, Ashton?
Yeah, I would also add one thing we do that I don't see really any other Airbnb property management companies doing is we take on all of the marketing expenses for their home. So of course our fee is like a percentage fee that's based on the gross revenue of the property every month. But a lot of property managers, at least what Julie and I have seen in our network, will charge an additional, for example, $500 a month to list your property on Google ads, Facebook ads, Instagram ads, et cetera. We do all of that in-house because again, it only benefits us when you are your property's being booked at the highest daily rate. So we really take all of our marketing expenses and we do that in-house as just part of our service, meaning we run Facebook ads, Google ads, Instagram ads, all of the ads you can do in social media, especially for your property, just covered already under our fee that we have already. So I would say that's like a big differentiator for us too, in addition to all the other strategies. We also do like a couple things very unique. Like Julie and I still talk to all of our investors personally. Like they don't have to go through a customer service rep or some other person. Like we have everyone's personal phone numbers. We know about everyone's lives. Like if they're having a baby, they're getting married, these things, like we care about our clients almost as friends too. So I think that really differentiates us as well. And, maybe one day we will be at the point where if we have 1,000 clients, we might not be able to serve everyone in that sense exactly, but we really do even plan at that level to serve our clients in some unique way. So we love that personal relationship aspect. And I think that is different with a lot of other people. Like people even say, we love having y'all's personal phone numbers. Like we don't feel like we're not being taken care of, or we're just some other person in the feed that has to call someone else to get a hold of you. That's not really our ethos. And I think that also differentiates us from other competitors that would be property management companies in this space.
Absolutely.
Very cool. So how do you handle the day-to-day operations? Do you guys have task flows, processes, systems in place? How do you manage to check all the boxes for each of the properties and not be very disorganized?
Yeah. Great question. We've been learning a lot about that this year and how to build that. I think it's like a really kind of A and B testing approach is what we have found to work best. I mean, we utilize a ton of regular like project management softwares and whatnot. And we do have a small admin team now, which has been a tremendous help just in terms of, operational administrative duties that Julie and I were once doing all by ourselves. But I mean, we use all different types of software, some very specific to Airbnb. We do use Slack though as our main channel, which I think a lot of your viewers and yourself might be familiar with, but it's been a lot of just A and B testing of different softwares and what works best. We do have SOPs, like standard operating procedures that we take in account for, when it comes to setting up new listings, when it comes to filling out like very specific nuances for each listing, et cetera. So those again have been kind of a building process over the past year of realizing, okay, every single property will get this, and this, and these things need to be checked off before going live. But again, every property is also unique and we understand that too. So then it's like, we need to check every single unique box for every individual listing as well. But all in all, I would say it's been a huge testing what works when it comes to software and just overall communication with our teams. And yeah, Slack is like our main hub right now, just in terms of communication with everyone in the Hosty team. And then beyond that, we do have like specific SOPs for when it comes to developing the listing, like SEO strategies, pricing strategies. All of these things can be applied, but are uniquely developed for each individual listing too.
Yeah.
I could see the org chart growing in your head as you were going through all of
that. Yes. Yeah, it has been. And that's one of our biggest goals that we've been working on is just, again, what Julia said earlier today is just working on outsourcing where it doesn't make sense for us to handle more mundane tasks or admin tasks. That's been a big learning curve for us this year and just trying to hire the right people and also learning like what questions do we need to ask people to ensure they're the right fit for our team and they, believe in our vision too. So.
Yeah.
Well, that leads me into our final question.
Cool.
And the reason I say it leads into is because I have a couple of books that I'm going to send y'all.
Yeah.
On these topics that have been life-changing for me, game-changing. So I'm going to send those to y'all.
Awesome.
But that being said, give me each of y'all's top 3 books that you recommend or gift to others.
Top 3 books. The one that I've read most recently that I really like is Atomic Habits.
James Clear,
yes, that's a great one for me. I have to think on the other 2 books.
I like Never Split the Difference. I forget the author.
Voss?
It's like a classic sales. Yes, like that one has really also taught me just through being an entrepreneur, especially, I don't want to use the woman card, but being in a very male-dominated space, it's very important to know your worth and when it's appropriate to walk away from a deal, even if the deal is potentially life-changing. We've had to do that in some instances. Yes. that has been a big teacher for me. And even as someone who used to be a very big people pleaser, like just learning, like I'm not splitting, never split the difference, like know what your time is valued at and all of those lessons. I also really like the 4-hour work week is a good one. And I think that's taught us a lot about, again, how to automate tasks, processes, and just overall what is valuing your time at in terms of on an hourly rate. Like something I've learned, it was in that book or a combination of a bunch of entrepreneur books I've read, but thinking about, how much do you want to get paid on an hourly basis? Is it $50 an hour? Is it $500 an hour? Is it $10,000 an hour? And thinking about what tasks are you doing that are aligning with that specific dollar amount. A lot of the times you're doing things that are not aligning with that dollar amount. So I think that came from the 4-hour work week, but those are really my top two. I mean, I've also read a bunch of like real estate. What's the Robert Kiyosaki? What was that?
Yeah. Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yes,
that's a good
classic.
one.
Like that is actually
like
one
30
of the
others.
first.
Yeah. He just like puts out a book all the time.
I know.
That
He's
was one
great.
of like the first real estate / like self-help books I ever read though.
Yeah.
Back in, 2019 when I was really starting this. And I'm a big walker, so I'll do a lot of audiobooks and just go on walks and, like pick out little golden nuggets from each one.
Yeah.
But
I think he's probably, Robert Kiyosaki has probably been responsible for more people getting into real estate.
Yes.
Oh,
than-
for sure.
Than
He
about
has.
anybody
Yeah.
with that book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad,
Yes.
because
yeah.
reading through that book, oh, wow, this sounds so easy.
Yeah. Yeah. But, I mean, I have like I would say my book collection is 90% self-help, entrepreneurial. And some of them, like I say, I kind of skim through because a lot of them do have similar lessons or some crossover in some instances. But I would say those 3 have been like the most impactful, just ones in terms of specific lessons or just things that I have actually applied in day-to-day business, life, etc. So
Yeah, it's funny. Most business books, it seems like, are kind of right at about that 250-page mark.
yeah.
A lot of them could be 10 pages.
Yeah.
And so you figure out pretty quick, okay, is this one where I need to read the whole 250? Or can I
Yes.
basically read the first few paragraphs of each chapter and get the point?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, ladies, thank you so much for your time today. We really
Yes.
appreciate having you here. And thank you to everyone for tuning in to another episode of the Driven Crowd podcast.
Thanks, Scott.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.